Hello, everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown, and welcome to my show. We are going to be going far, far away from the United States today, but still to something that actually is owned by the United States. So we're going to be examining the case of the missing Luhk sisters in Saipan, which is in the North Mariana Islands, and so very, very far away. And since I was going to Hawaii, I'm going to be in Hawaii in January and February and March, I thought maybe I could just take a plane over there. But $1,700 later, I thought, nah, I probably can't afford to go visit Saipan, which apparently is a very gorgeous place. Just before we get into the sad case, I just want to let you know that bad things happen in nice places. You know, sometimes people have such a negative view of a place, and it isn't necessarily so. So here's Saipan. It's got the most gorgeous waters. It's got beautiful, it's just an absolute. They apparently really like these colored cars, which is really interesting. So, and this is called, I think it's called Suicide Mountain or something like that. So that's kind of concerning. But anyway, apparently people love the place to go visit. Absolutely stunning snorkeling and friendly people and a wonderful culture and all of that. But, you know, even in, quote, paradise, which no place is actually paradise, but bad things happen because human beings live in every place in the world. So even if there's so many wonderful people in a place, there's always that bad one. And that bad one apparently got a hold of these two girls. And it's a very, very sad case. But before I start, I want to welcome everybody who's in the chat room. Yeah, I think sometimes see if everybody else. I just said hello to everybody, so I'm not sure. You've never heard of this location? Yeah, it's about if you went to Hawaii and then you flew west, you would run into the island. It's near to Guam, which is also a U.S. protectorate. So Guam and Saipan are U.S. Actually, you don't need a passport if you're a U.S. citizen to go there or to live there. Saipan, if you took a plane to Japan, would be 3 hours from Japan, which I'm going to say it will be a lot cheaper from Japan to Saipan than from the mainland U.S. or even from Hawaii to get to Saipan. So if I ever get to Japan, I might take a side trip because it's in the middle of the ocean, you know, which makes it obviously I'm an avid lover of Hawaii, and because I love the whole landscape. I love the beauty of the sea and the mountains and the culture. So I would probably love Saipan as well, but I can't afford to go there. So it's not, I can't even afford to go to Hawaii. What am I talking about? Anyway, if you'd like to be in the chat room before I get going with all of this, I do want to let you know that, hold on a second. What? No. What? Oh, there we go. Sorry. Okay. If you'd like to be in the chat room, please join Patreon. The link is below. It's $5 a month. I do 2 live shows a week. I do the case show like this on the weekend, and I do a hangout during the week, which encompasses any questions anybody has about what's in the news and anything, questions about profiling. Throw it at me, and I just hang out for 2 hours with everybody. And that's a great support for an educational channel. But if you don't want to do that and you can't afford to go to Starbucks and buy their expensive coffee, just subscribe to the channel. That's totally free. All of my videos, a week after I do the live shows, go public. So there's nothing hidden. And I try to look at your comments on the videos that I do because I want people to learn. So that's that. Okay, let's go to this. A fascinating case. And I, of course, never heard of it. Like many people, I've never heard of it because it's in Saipan. And I just want to point out pronunciation. I listened to a number of channels, and one fellow said Saipan. And I'm not sure that he's now speaking in, I think it's a Chamorro. I got to look this up, language, and therefore he says Saipan. But most people say Saipan, so I'm just going to use that because I'm lazy. And That's very nice of you. You're the best deal for the price ever. I'm like, so cheap. You know, I love your show and I love the fact that you bottom line everything. Thank you, Pat, for your hard work. Thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, I'm mostly into education more than I am into, you know, being a YouTuber. So, but thank you, YouTube, for allowing me to educate. Anyway, this particular show is actually a very much about profiling, and I want you to be involved in it in this show because the information in this case is extremely limited, and this bugs the heck out of it. One of the things I talk about a lot when they want to go out to the public, in this case is let's see what happened in 2011. So we're talking. I always get my math wrong here. 14 years ago. 14 years ago, these girls disappeared, never been seen again. Bodies had never been found. No one knows what happened to them. And they keep going out to the public and saying, if you have any information, let us know. But they never give enough details for people to say, hey, maybe I do know something. And that bugs the heck out of me. First of all, they need to describe what kind of person would take two beautiful sisters and kill them, because if anybody thinks they're alive, yeah, okay, no, they're not alive. And I'm going to say basically sex predator of some sort. And so I'm not going to get into details of what I think might happen to these girls because it's not pleasant. But if someone kidnaps two girls, abducts two girls off of a school bus stop, and they're never seen again, this is a psychopath. This is a sexual psychopath. And why do we not get any information given to the public as to whom they should look for, especially when they might know that person? So we get these very vague, if you know anything, let us know. And people are like, do I know something? You know, it drives me nuts, because if you really want information, you got to give information. And so they should be putting together a package of, this is what we know. These are the important details. And therefore, if you know somebody who these details match, give us a call. But they haven't done that. It's been very vague. They have the FBI has been involved, by the way, because this is a U.S. It's basically the U.S. The FBI was involved very early on, and so they had huge support of the local police, and yet the crap I've seen out there on the internet is so vague and just pointless. I'm like, except for, I mean, the best information on the internet doesn't come from the FBI or the police. It comes from Reddit. That's sad. But okay, Reddit, you're doing a good job. But it bugs me. Linda, thank you for saying this. I think just like I'm sure you do, Pat, the Asian culture is very private. I don't know if they trust authorities like we would. Well, the issue isn't whether they trust authorities. The issue is whether the authorities give enough information that people can work with it. Because nobody likes to accuse another person of committing this kind of crime. They don't. I mean, it's like, what if I'm wrong? You know, I'm like, I think Cousin Eddie did it, you know, and then, you know, they come after Cousin Eddie and Cousin Eddie didn't do it, and you're a scum, you know. I mean, I understand the fear of family giving information out about somebody and they don't know if the person's really guilty or not. However, if you don't give enough information out to the public, they cannot understand what they should be looking for in a person or in an alibi or in a location or behaviors. They got nothing to work with. And pretty much the FBI and the local police have given the public nothing to work with. And that's why this crime probably stays unsolved. Anyway, what crime are we talking about? Just, people are like, you're going, can you get to what the crime is? All right. Let me tell you what happened. Okay, so I'm going to start with, I'm going to use bite-sized crime. Thank you, bite-sized crime. I think you did a good job of explaining some of the basic stuff here. So I'm going to start with you as the place I'll read from. 10-year-old Faloma Luhk and her 9-year-old sister, Maleina, lived on the island of Saipan, part of the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands. Approximately, for you guys who don't know where the heck this place is, look, go to Google Maps. Um, Approximately 1,600 miles east of the Philippines. The Mariana Islands are a long chain of islands in the south, in the Pacific, with Saipan being the largest both in size and population. Well, you want to talk about how much population they have? In 2011, there were approximately 48,000 people living on the island, a mix of cultures and languages. So not that big a place. So if you go there, I don't know when this picture was taken, but this is Saipan City. So there's a big building and a semi-big building and some smaller buildings, and that's the biggest place on Saipan. And the rest of the country area, the island, is quite rural. And there are large family groups that have, lived there for many, many moons, and they have grown. And so there's these certain family groups that are very well known for being in certain areas. And these two girls belong to one of those family groups. But because it's extremely rural, it's interesting. And because it's an island, it's interesting. Now, some people said, oh my God, maybe the girls were thrown on a boat and taken off to Guam, where they became what? They lived out their lives in Guam. No, they did not. They did not. And they put out these this is what they would look like today. Yeah, whatever. They're not alive. There was a photo of a woman who was seen in a grocery store. And it was like, oh my God. No, it wasn't any. It was somebody who was not related to these two girls. So the problem is, if you're on an island, the bigger issue isn't so much whether you can be spirited away on a boat, because obviously you can't get on a flight. It's not like you say, oh, these two kids, they're not mine, but hey, let them on the plane. No. Now they have relatives in the, so what the FBI did look at, I just want to point out, is where's our FBI guy? Oh, FBI guy, here he is. His name is Tom Simon, which is kind of amusing. During his interview, they kept saying Simon Says. It did make me laugh. Sorry, it still makes me laugh. Simon Says. Oh my, you probably should have reworded that some other way. But anyway, Simon Says, they could be in Hawaii. They could be in Guam. They could be on the west coast of the United States, Washington State, because a lot of the relatives and the people from Saipan do move to the west coast, California, Oregon, and Washington. This is true for Hawaiians as well, because you can't find work, you just go to the west coast of the U.S. So they're looking over there for a suspect, but if they're looking there for the girls, it's kind of stupid. So the girls weren't spirited away to the west coast of the United States. They weren't spirited away to Guam. They weren't spirited away to Hawaii. They died. I will stand by that. They died on Saipan. And they just haven't found their bodies. That's my belief. All right. So what happened to these beautiful girls? All right. 10-year-old Faloma Luhk, 10-year-old Faloma Luhk and her sister Maleina lived on the island of Saipan. All right. They lived, okay. I want to stop here because they're living there, and there's a show, I'll link it below, where they interviewed, this is very recent, they interviewed the mother of these two girls who've never been found. And it's just the saddest interview. She breaks down through the entire interview. And on the right side, there's only 7 comments, and four of the comments are like, did she take a polygraph? She did it. I know she's guilty, blah, blah, blah. Let me read you what it says here. Faloma and Maleina lived with their grandparents, Albert and Jane Quintunga, in the village of Asteo. Their father, a former police officer, had left the island when the girls were very young and had little contact with the family. Worthless piece of crap. Anyway, their mother lived and worked on the island of Guam, the southernmost island in the Mariana Archipelago. Archipelago? Archipelago. When you read things, you should read them properly. Although the parents weren't around, Faloma and Maleina were surrounded by a family, a tight-knit group of aunts, uncles, and cousins. They attended school in a neighboring township, and I'll get to that because that's very important, where they had a close group of friends. The girls were bright, happy, and well-loved. And there's no evidence that that is not true. So, no, the mother and the father of these two girls had nothing to do with their disappearance because they weren't on Saipan at the time the girls disappeared, you morons. All right, so we can exclude them because they weren't there. So they lived with the grandparents, went to school every day. And according to the teachers at the school, they seemed to be lovely girls and seemed to be happy. And the grandparents helped them with their homework and all that kind of stuff. So the internal home life where they were living seemed to be pretty darn good. So I'm just checking comments on that. You watched the video. It would make no sense for the mother to do this. Well, no, we have mothers who do kill their children. So you can speculate that. There's nothing wrong. If you're profiling a case, analyzing a case, you should keep all the avenues open. You can speculate that, but then you have to say, where was the mother? And if the mother's not even on the island, she didn't do it. It's kind of simple. And so, yes, she worked in Guam. So she just wasn't there. And that people jump to conclusions so quickly without doing a bit of research. And it's pretty disgusting. Let's see. The sex trafficking thing. You know, one of the worst things that's ever come around on the internet is this excessive obsession with sex trafficking, that every little kid that gets kidnapped, every woman that gets kidnapped, everybody's being forced into sex trafficking. And almost never is that the truth. Most young children who are kidnapped are dead within hours because of they got grabbed by a sexual psychopath, a serial killer. They're dead. They're not being put into sex trafficking, especially girls who are of an age where they know who they are, they know their names, they know where they live, and they will talk. I pointed out so many places. You don't kidnap somebody who's going to be missed. It's going to start a major investigation, and it's just not worth it. You find people. There are so many women who are willing to be involved in prostitution. You don't need to kidnap them. As far as children go, yes, sometimes children are involved in sexual types of, how do I put this? Sometimes they're filmed, put on the internet. Sometimes they are offered in place of drugs. There's a lot of terrible things happen to children. For the most part, in places where, in the United States, in Europe, and places like that, usually have family involvement as far as, hey, I need drugs. Hey, you can, whatever. There are certain countries where, because of the poverty, severe poverty, India, Nepal, just some places in Central America, South America, certain places, they're just, with the severe poverty, you can abduct children and put them into a brothel or something, or tell grown women that, we're going to get you a job in the United States, and then they're from, let's say they're from, I don't know, Guatemala or something, and then they end up in somebody's house near me, because there's actually that's been true. Like I could go 50 minutes down the street in an area that's highly Hispanic, and they have these little brothel houses. With illegal immigrants who were brought over by coyotes, who said, I'm going to give you a chance to live in the United States, but you're going to pay away. That kind of thing happens. But the excessive obsession with everybody who is a child or an adult gets kidnapped. Oh my God, Amy Bradley was kidnapped off of a cruise ship. Get out of here. Nobody's going to do that. Stupid. Nobody's going to kidnap Madeleine McCann and put her into sex trafficking because she was a daughter of of British doctors. It's going to cause a huge investigation. You don't bother with that because there's so many kids you can just grab and nobody gives a crap about. So, no, they're not in sex trafficking. They're very likely like every other child who's been kidnapped at this age, and 2 children not alive within hours, and it's horrifying. So there's no reason to go someplace that's it's unnecessary. So, oh, interesting question. Linda says, I don't understand why parents would rather think the kids are sex trafficked rather than murdered. And so, like, sex trafficking is a fad. It is a fad right now. And the reason that families will go for it is because sex trafficking gives them the hope that the loved one is still alive. Even if it's ridiculous, it gives them the hope they're alive. If my child were kidnapped, would I want to think they were dead within 3 hours? Or I want to think maybe there's just hope. I don't know. I haven't been there. I don't want to be there. So I don't blame the parents for being delusional, essentially, and having ridiculous hope. But I do blame YouTubers and the mass media for promoting the garbage because that's just really cruel. That bugs me. So these girls the parents were out of the country, out of Saipan. They were in Guam and wherever else that father was at. All right. So they were raised by, the mother came and went. So they had their grandparents, and the mother was involved in their lives to an extent, but she had to go make some money. And I'll point this out. Sometimes it's just not enough work. And if your husband deserted you and he's kind of useless, and you got to make money to send home to take care of your kids because you can't make it on Saipan, I'm not going to blame the mother for choosing to work in Guam. She might have to support her family, and she's got somebody to take care of her kids. She sends the money there. The kids are cared for. She comes back and forth. I don't have any issues with that. All right. So it says this. Okay. So what happened with them? On the morning of May 25th, 2011, that's 14 years ago, Faloma and Maleina got ready for school as they usually did. Faloma quickly finished one last bit of homework with her grandfather's help. Now, I'm talking about 6 in the morning, so grandpa gets up early because I would be sleeping. I'm like, if you didn't do it last night, we're not helping. And then the girls grabbed their backpacks, and there's some description of the backpacks out there, never been found, and ran out of the door to wait for the school bus. All right. The small pavilion where they waited each morning was just a few hundred feet from their home. So their grandparents didn't usually accompany them. It was completely normal for the neighborhood children to all wait together under the shelter of the bus stop. And that's what Faloma and Maleina planned to do that morning. Okay, now this is a little confusing. So one of the things I want you to do when you're trying to analyze this case, because that's what I really want you to do in this particular video. I want you to analyze this case. Okay, let's look at where they are. All right, so let me just get this straight again, so you know. Faloma Luhk was the older girl. Maleina was the younger girl. All right. Now, let's look at where they were. This is a location on the island of Saipan where they lived. This is the village of Asteo. So it's that area, and this is gonna be kind of important. So try to keep that in your mind. All right. So now, this is the kind of the graphics aren't great here, but kind of where the circle is sort of where the bus stop might have been. Just take a look at it's fairly rural. If you see all that green around them, that's very important. All right. So now you can really see it here. So you see a lot of green. So they're in this bus pavilion. This is a cute little bus pavilion. Keeps you sheltered from the rain, but you'll see it's in a whole bunch of trees. Now, they may have lived 300 feet away or whatever, people's different versions of how many meters, how many feet. They weren't far away, but I'm going to say this. I'm terrible with measurement. Anyway, I'm next door to me over here is my granddaughter. If we go out of our driveway, we go down a little hill, then we go down a road, and then we turn and we go down a little bit more. We come out on the main road. Now, on that road, they could. It's if you generally speak, I've walked that a lot to the mailbox and all that, and there's one little girl that lives a little further down the road, and what her parents do is she rides. She's got a golf cart, and she rides down the little road, turns the corner, and then hides the golf cart in the bushes, and then she gets on the school bus, and then when the school bus drops her off, I've seen her walk up the road, go into the bushes, she gets the golf cart, and then she goes back up to the house, and because it's not that long a walk, but hey, the golf cart makes it faster. And they probably have an extra golf cart. A lot of us do. We have a golf cart too, and my granddaughter loves to ride around on it. And so, but the problem is, as you're going down that road, now we have a relative on. If you turn the corner, we got a relative there. Yeah, two relatives. Not my relatives, but my in-laws have two relatives on the road, and now. There used to be another relative, but she died, so that was sold off. Nice fellow with his daughter. And then there's, on the other side of the road, a really great guy who's always lived here all his life with his kids. And then he owns the landscaping company, which has cars parked for the landscapers who are, as far as I know, legal immigrants. So, I mean, so they're perfectly nice guys. Always been great. I could drive by and I wave, and they're sweet and all that. We have donkey in the field and a horse and some alpacas and llamas. And on the other side, the guy who has a landscaping company, his daughters wanted cows. So now he seems to have a whole bunch of cows. His daughters won't let him get rid of. So it's really cute. We see all the cows and the calves, and it's very sweet. And then you go around the corner, and on the very corner that meets the street, we have a law enforcement officer, which is also my daughter who lives up on the hill. So is it safe? Well, it looks really safe. Can my 11-year-old granddaughter just walk down to the mailbox? Could she just walk down and pick up a school bus on that street? Well, why not? It's not that far. Is it 300 feet? Gosh, I just honestly don't know. Maybe a little further, actually. But on a perfectly pleasant day, it looks so innocent. Would I be comfortable with her doing that? Just because I'm paranoid? Generally, probably no. So do we want her to wander down that street by herself? No. Do we want to go with one friend down that street by herself? No. We want her to stay in our area. Just never know. You just never know. There's UPS drivers that come up who are usually lovely. The other people coming up for many, many reasons. Everybody seems to be lovely. Generally speaking, 99.9% of the people who might come and go, including the workers at the place across the street and the landscape company, are nice people. All you need is one, though. Which one is it? So when you have children who walk off by themselves, and of course I grew up in the 70s. I grew up in the, no, okay, I went to college in the 70s. I grew up in the 50s and 60s when people used to say, go out and play and come back when the lights come on. And your parents had no idea where the heck you were for all those hours. And you didn't have a phone, so you just showed back up. And I know it's kind of interesting when you think about the freedom kids used to have to run around. Now, mind you, some of the kids did disappear, but we didn't have the media we have today, so we didn't hear about them disappearing as much. But anytime a child is on its own, you can have 99 out of 100 children never have a problem. And then you have this. So they walked this short distance. They weren't kidnapped on that short distance, by the way. So what happened was on the morning of May 25th, they finished up the homework. They grabbed their backpacks and ran out of the door to wait for the school bus, a small pavilion that they waited in. And it's such a cute little pavilion. And where'd my pavilion go? Oh, where the heck did my pavilion go? I lost the pavilion. Wait a minute, is it here? Oh, there it is. There's a pavilion. And it was completely normal, they say, for the neighborhood children to wait together under the shelter of the bus stop. Okay, I want to ask you a question right here because there's a profiling question. What's the first question you would ask about this? They went out at 6 o'clock, arrived there about 6:05. Bus came at 6. They arrived there at 6:05, 6:10. Bus came at 6:30. What's your number one question you would say? Right here, because this is what I want you to understand about profiling and asking the right questions. Hey, Dee Dee. Welcome. Did they get to school? No, they never showed up. They were seen supposedly by a teenager in the bus shelter about 6:10. Some teenager driving by said they saw him at 6:10, and they never showed up at school. No, they did not get to school. So they were kidnapped out of this shelter. There's no question. Bus driver came at 6:30, never saw them. They weren't there. Is this their routine? Yes. That's a good question. It is a routine. But that's a good question. The question would be, because we have to ask all questions, did anybody ever drive them to school? Because that could be a different thing. Is somebody from their community, their grandparents, aunts, uncles, whatever, yes, in that particular community, there were a lot of relatives. Did somebody ever drive them to school? I would like to know the answer to that question. It doesn't exist right now. If I were a detective or profiling the case, I would be asking that question. Did every day, there's two reasons you want to ask that question. One is, if they were here every day at approximately 6:10, that means that somebody would know they were here every day at 6:10. That's one important thing. The second important thing is sometimes they got a ride from somebody, that this will be a person they would be comfortable getting a ride from, whether they got a ride from their home or they got a ride from the bus stop. Great questions. This is a very good question. Who would know their schedule, Liz? That is a good question, because we're talking about 6:10 in the morning, and that's an unusual time for kidnapping for kids. Kids will be kidnapped off of bus stops. They'll be kidnapped walking to school, walking home from school. 6:10 in the morning is early in a very isolated location. So who the heck? Here's another question. Who would know their schedule? Could be luck. Sometimes a serial killer will roll by and like, oh, dang, 2 kids in a bus stop. Can't eliminate that. All right, talk about different avenues. You might have more importance on this avenue, but you might still consider the other avenues. Who, either somebody came across them accidentally, somebody knew their schedule, or somebody knew them. So what time did the other kids get there? Very good question, Molly. As far as I know, no other kids showed up there. So I think they may have been the only 2 kids that were ever on that bus stop, which is very interesting to me. If they were only ever 2 of the kids on the bus stop, somebody would know that if they were in the area, that every time they went by, it was just those 2 kids. They never saw any other kids. They're like, okay, I guess that's just the only 2 kids in this area taking that bus to school from this bus stop. A stranger might come by and say, oh, there's 2 kids at the bus stop. Now, I want to stop here because I want you to use your thinking here. If you were a stranger and you're coming by, let's say you haven't, I'm not saying if you have been stalking the kids, and I'm going to get to that because there was a claim by some garbage collectors that they saw a blue van on Wednesday, 2 Wednesdays prior in the area, but when it was still dark, and this was also a Wednesday. So somebody could be stalking. But let's say they weren't stalking. Let's say they were just somebody passing by, some creepo passing by at 6 o'clock in the morning and sees these 2 girls on the bus stop. What's the one problem you would think that they might think when they see these 2 girls on the bus stop? That's a good. Well, I'm waiting for that answer. Clarissa says they shouldn't be at the bus stop so early. They need to wait closer to when the bus arrives. That did cross my mind too, Clarissa. I'm like, why are they there so early? If it's such a short walk, why do they need to be there that early? Now, I don't know. Again, this is one of the problems with decent reporting and police reporting. Did sometimes the bus show up earlier? I don't know. Did sometimes the girls lollygag around on the way? I don't know. So I thought they were there kind of early to have to sit there for 15 minutes. Or 20 minutes? Why didn't they come 10 minutes later if they were so close? And I don't know the answer to that. This is what's interesting about this case. The girls could scream. Well, they could scream, but we're talking about, let me show you the location. Okay. So this is the little butt thing there. And next to it is, I can't figure out what the heck this is. It looks like a house, but I'm not sure what exactly. It seems like a home. You would think they would, if you were kidnapping a kid, you would think, wow, there's a house right there. Somebody might be seeing me. These are the different directions from that location. As you see past that house, it's pretty much nothing. Up this way, you see it's just green trees. If you look this direction, pretty much again, green trees. Pretty good distance to some building down the way. Okay, a lot of green trees. I believe, except for that house next to the stand, the shelter here, it was pretty empty. So somebody came by and said, look, 2 girls at a bus shelter here. Would anybody see me grab them? One would be the house next door. I would be a little worried about that if I were grabbing somebody. Now, I want you to ask this question. What's another really important question to ask? I'm really trying to pick your brains here. No, Texas redhead? That was the question I was going to ask. Thank you. How much light was there at the time? Could they have easily been seen? Oh, good timing, Texas redhead. I'm thinking it's 6:10 in the morning. Now, so I looked it up and Grok helped me. And apparently on that day, and at that exact day, many years ago in Saipan, it was light. It was already light and past dawn. So actually, it was light. I kept thinking about these kids walking in the dark to this and sitting in the dark, and apparently it was not. It was light. Now it was dark. One of the garbage collectors saw a vehicle, this van, a bit earlier. It was dark. But by the time the girls were in the bus stand, apparently it was light. And that is a very interesting issue because they could be seen more easily if they were going to try to kidnap 2 girls out of a bus stand. They could be seen just in general that they were they have to stop the vehicle and try to get 2 girls in there. They had a house next door. It looked like a house that might look out a window and say, what the? And also, what about other people driving by? What about other children arriving if you didn't know other children were going to be arriving? So there's a lot of reasons why it seems a little odd that the kidnapper would be an unknown to the girls, an unknown to the area, that he would take this kind of a risk. Okay, Clarissa, I heard this. I saw this in one article. This is one of the problems we have when we're reading crap on the internet. I heard something about them sitting across the street, sitting on a concrete slab or something. I also read that one article. Every other article says they were in that bus stop enclosure. But I did also read that. I'm like, what are they talking about? And I honestly didn't know what they were talking about. So I'm like, so yeah. I couldn't find any slab across the way at all. So hold on 1 second, guys. Just realized my I forgot to plug in my iPad. Hold on, I'll be right back. Okay. Looked over. I'm like, what the heck? Why is it on 10%? Anyway, Clarissa says it made no sense to me either. One of the things that is important when you're trying to ask for help from the public is you got to clear up all the claims you see all over the internet that make no sense. So they need to list them. This is a big thing I have with law enforcement. They need to stand in front of the public and list the things they need to know. List the evidence, the facts, not the evidence, but the facts, because a lot of people don't know what the facts are. They need to know the exact time the girls were there. They need to know if any other children ever came to that bus stand. They need to know if it was light out or not. They need to know if there's a stupid slab across the street that they're actually sitting on. They need to know these things because it could make a difference in what they remember. And so they want to do that. Liz does some good stuff. She's a detective. I'm always hoping that people come here. That's the whole point, is that people here can profile quite well. themselves. The people in the house, I don't know anything about those people in the house. I don't even know what that house is. I see this building again. You've got two missing girls and you can't come up with any kind of solid information. It's very annoying. Very annoying. Okay, so the shelter almost looks like somebody could hide in there. Probably not, though. They could, but then where's their vehicle? And these girls were obviously driven away in a vehicle. There's no question they were gone. You think, Dog's Discussion says the girls knew the kidnapper, so they took the ride. Check the other bus drivers on their day off. And I don't know how many bus drivers there are. This is a very rural area. I'm going to show you where the school is. But did they know their abductor is a good question. A predator would keep watch to learn the routines and timing of other kids. Possibly. A lot of times, just to tell you how predators often work, they're kind of lazy a lot of times. And so, yeah, they do watch for things, but they're not going to watch for things outside of their area. So keep that in mind. This is, let me show you on the map where this place is again. Okay, no, that's not it. Okay, this is the location that they're in. And it is far away from the city. The city's like the only place that's really a city. And the rest of the place is kind of rural-ish with like one of the things I'm going to get to this in a second. Let me tell you this. Hold on a second. So I'll find this. I thought I had a closer up one. Where's my closer up one? Okay. That's the closer up one. So we're talking pretty rural. Okay. What's another question you would ask about this location? If they're kidnapped off a bus stop in this location at 6:10 in the morning, somewhere around there, 6:15, whatever, what is a question you should ask? Because 6:15 in the morning is really early for people to be up. This is not a busy area. We're not talking about a suburb with a ton of people coming and going all over the place. People going to work, people coming home from work, businesses everywhere. What is a question you would like to know about this relatively rural area with mostly just family homes? What else is going on at the time? Yeah, I would want to know that. Check with local farmers. I don't think there are any farmers there. It looked like a bunch of jungle, but it seemed like it. Did you notice anything unusual? The girls disappeared in the morning. Well, okay, that's a good question. There were some trash collectors who had said prior to that they had seen this van or truck. What is it? What was it? Okay, let's see what it says here. The bus stop itself. This thing. This is where. Wait a minute. This is what you asked about. Several witnesses had spotted the girls that morning sitting on a cement slab across from the bus stop around 6:10 a.m. What cement slab? I don't even see one. Why are they across the road? That's another question, because they wouldn't. The bus comes to the location where they're sitting in the bus stand. They wouldn't be across the road. I don't even understand that. Several witnesses. What the heck? But by the time the school bus arrived at 6:30, the girls were nowhere to be seen. I don't know who these witnesses are. I only heard about one teenager. Again, here we have crappy information, and the police and the FBI should clear that up. The bus stop itself was a safe enough location. What's a safe location for a bus stop? That's stupid. Right at the intersection of Asteo Drive and Chalan Santa Lourdes, a paved road that leads to Route 31, one of the main thoroughfares on the island. That doesn't make it safe. There are several houses right next to the bus pavilion. I saw the one, I didn't see any others. And the girls' home was only 100 yards away, or 300 feet, or some meters. I don't know. However, the road is curved and surrounded by thick vegetation, leaving a short field of visibility in any direction. Correct. Now, whatever happened to the girls on May 25th is entirely possible. It's hidden from view. Yes. But regardless, someone has to stop in front of that pavilion, grab two children, and one, it's light. They have to not worry about being seen by anybody. And if that house next door has people in it, or whatever house they claim exists in the area also could see them, they have to believe no one is going to pass by when they're doing it, and no other children are going to arrive at the bus stop. Those are three things I think are extremely important. So So my question was, going back to my question, what else is what's in the area? Somebody is coming by this pavilion at 6:15 approximately in the morning. Why the hell are they there? That would be my question. Molly says you could ask the public to contact police. They routinely pass the area, and if they saw the girls, I'm sure they did ask that. The problem is, nothing is properly put together. If you want to find these girls after all these years, you got to put something together. If you want somebody to remember back in time. They supposedly did they went to all the neighbors and the family and they talked to everybody. I'm not saying they didn't do a good job of that. What I'm saying is that when they came up with nothing enough and they want the public to respond, put in some basic details. Linda says, they didn't grab anybody. The girls knew the person. They got in the car willingly. They created no ruckus and no one noticed. And I'm going to get back to that. Was this a sex predator unknown to the girls who somehow at 6:15 in the morning was rolling through the area? Or is it somebody they knew? They had to know they were there every day, just the two of them. And one would think that. Now, mind you, there were some shady people. They also spotted some guy who was hanging around he was hanging around the pavilion. Where is it? Okay, I'll tell you the other people they were concerned about. They announced they had a witness that came forward with information about a man who was seen near the entrance of the Santa Lourdes shrine, just yards away from the bus stop. There's a little shrine. According to the witness, the man, described as a Pacific Islander in his 30s with short hair and a birthmark on his cheek, had been parked outside the shrine on May 6th around 10:30 p.m. This is night now, not during the day. So just because he was in the area parked there doesn't mean it's at night. When the witness had approached him, the man said he was looking for someone. They quickly drove off in a white four-door car with heavily tinted windows and damage to the front end. The witness provided investigators with a sketch of the man, which they released to the media. Special Agent Tom Simon, as Simon says, told reporters that the man was not a suspect, but they wanted to speak with him in case he knew anything about them that would benefit the investigation. So that was one guy they saw there was acting suspiciously. Then one of the trash collectors stated that when he and his partner stopped at the pavilion at 5:45 on May 25th, Faloma and Maleina were not there because it was too early. This makes sense because we know the girls didn't leave their house until after 6 that day. However, the trash collector said that on previous 2 Wednesdays, May 18th and May 11th, they had seen the same gray Nissan pickup truck in the immediate area. On May 11th, the truck had been parked in front of the shrine with its headlights on. On May 18th, they saw the truck driving toward the bus pavilion. Both times it was too dark for them to make out the driver, but they assumed it was someone who lived in the neighborhood, and they did not think much of it until the girls disappeared. Because, okay, you have a neighborhood with a bunch of people, and any of those bunch of people who are going to work in the morning will go down the exact road that passes the pavilion. There's no other way pretty much out of that area. So they have to drive by the pavilion. Now, who is the guy? I mean, you would think it's a small area, and it's what do they say? These people say that pickup truck, gray Nissan pickup truck. That's pretty specific for a small area. I would think the police went in and found the gray Nissan pickup truck. We hear nothing about it, that the guy's been cleared or whatever. We just don't know. Where was he going at that time in the morning? One of the questions I was trying to ask you was, Wednesday seems to be a big clue. Except for maybe that's one of the days the guy went to work on Wednesday and they happened to see him. It may be that that's when the trash collectors don't come out every day. That may be the day they come out, and this guy may go every day past this because you have to leave the neighborhood to go to work. But here's my point about 2 things. One is there are no businesses in the neighborhood. I checked that out. There's no businesses in the area of that where they're at. So it's not like there's a bunch of businesses like all-night restaurant or someplace where a security guard would be working and would get off at 6 o'clock in the morning. There's just nothing there. So there's no reason for anybody to be there except the residents. And the only reasons the residents would have to leave at 6 o'clock in the morning would be because they're going someplace to work. Why anybody else would be in the neighborhood from outside the community is a little questionable because there's nothing there for them to work at. So unless they're going to visit a relative or have a date in the community or whatever, they would have no reason to even be there. So it kind of limits your suspect group, shall we say. This is well, this is a good point. If you control one girl, the other girl will probably go and not leave the sister behind. That is very true. They're supposed to be very close. Everybody says that about sisters and brothers. It's like, oh, they were so close. But yeah, if the person were abducting them and grabbed one of the girls that had a knife to her or a gun, said, you come too, or I'll kill your sister. Oh yeah, I think she would get in. So there's no evidence that there was a struggle at that location. But I don't know how you would see the struggle. If I'm looking at that, it looks like cement to me. So if somebody pulls up in a vehicle, I think they could get the kids in the vehicle without any obvious struggle being shown, unless they were cut or something. But again, why is somebody out here at 6:15 in the morning? Either the person there's no place to work there. So somebody should not be, so there's not strangers from outside the community coming in. So unless somebody truly was stalking that one community and that one bus stop, and therefore was some kind of pedophile, a sexual predator, the more likely answer is that the person came from the community in which the girls lived, and that they had reason to come by that bus stand at 6:15 in the morning, either going to work or coming from work, because it doesn't mean they worked in the area. They could work. They obviously, there's no businesses there. They work outside of the area. So they would be coming or going. So let's see. So the trash. Okay. So they continued. They finally spoke. Now this gets interesting. They finally spoke to the man with a facial birthmark. And he then claimed he had been looking for someone when he was parked outside the shrine, a man named Alan Santos Algun. And we do not have a picture of him, but he became the number one suspect in this case. Who was he? He was a local firefighter whose wife was related to Maleina and Faloma. He was a family member. I think she was an aunt, and so he would be an uncle. He lived in the area near the bus stand. Investigators questioned, so we had the creepy dude showing up at night wanting to see this guy. Why was the uncle is what I think he is. Why was he hooking up with this guy? So I'm going to say, if the guy didn't know where the guy lived, it sounds like a drug deal to me. But I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying it's creepy. And therefore, you have to question what kind of human being this Algun guy is. Alan. I'll call him Alan because from now on, Alan. Uncle Alan. If he is Uncle Alan. He wasn't a nice man either. That's also a good point. Unless they did and didn't get to work that day. Someone driving to work can't abduct the girls unless they didn't go to work that day. Now, here's a good point. I'm glad you made that point. I don't know what the alibis of all these people were, because this is the one of the most important things you can do after an abduction like this is you have to get the alibis ASAP, right away. Where were you at 6:15 in the morning? And you want to make sure you know where they were, because if you ask them a year later, a lot of people just don't remember where they were. Now, admittedly, this is a shocking thing. So you think they would remember where they were on it's like, where were you on 9/11? And if you're a U.S. citizen, I mean, I know exactly where it was, exactly, because it was such a shocking incident. So if somebody gets killed, two girls get kidnapped from a bus stop, and it's known by the end of the day they were kidnapped from the bus stop, you should have known where you were, even a year later. But sometimes people are like, oh, no, I don't remember, especially if they were drinking, drugging, whatever. You want to get the alibis, as quickly as you can, and make sure they're real alibis. Real alibis being they were at work and they clocked in, and people were there to see them. It's real alibis. They went to a store and they bought something, and they were seen on a camera. Girlfriend and wife says they were at home. Always questionable because they'll lie. They will. And so we don't know where these people were, but that's a good point. So either the person, if they went to work, they couldn't have committed the crime unless they didn't actually show up at work. They also could be coming home from work, and therefore they were finished with their workday at 6:15 in the morning. So that's important to keep it. Who was late for work that day? Well, they'd have to be pretty late, because I'm going to say that these girls had to be taken someplace and have something happen to them and be, and whether if they could be killed within an hour, and then the person could go back and then remove their bodies and bury them and all that kind of stuff. That could be done later. So the time frame is always, people always think it has to be huge. It doesn't always have to be huge, because you got a kind of a psychopath like that. They could actually commit a crime like that within an hour and then show up at work with a cup of coffee in their hand and go, "Hey, morning, guys," because that's his alibi. So did Uncle have any weird behavior? Yes, we're going to get to Uncle and the weird behavior. At least I don't know if he's an uncle, but they're saying she was related. I think she was an aunt. But anyway, again, the information on this case is dreadful. So anyway, Alan Algun. So here's what happened. So the police, because they found out that this guy that I was looking for this guy named Algun, Alan Santos Algun. Algun was a local firefighter whose wife was related to Maleina and Faloma. Investigators questioned him and asked him to take a polygraph test, but he refused. Of course, we know that polygraphs are not reliable and cannot be used in court, and refusing to submit to one is not an indication of guilt, although you do wonder. But investigators kept an eye on him, and he resigned. Then he resigned from the fire department shortly after his interview, sold his 2003 Toyota Camry, and moved to Washington State. So he booked out of town, supposedly to reunite with his wife and children. The investigators seized the vehicle from the new owner and processed it for evidence, but they never revealed what, if anything, was found. Now, but the issue here would be whether we have DNA and that whole thing, whether they're looking for signs that there was a body in the car, blood in the car, whatever. But if they were kidnapped, they could have been then taken out of the vehicle, still walking around, and then something happened to them outside of the vehicle. So I don't know what their story is there. So anyway, so this guy's out of town now. He's in Washington State. In May of 2012, a year after the girls disappeared, he was arrested in Washington State on charges of domestic violence and assault after allegedly attacking his wife and child with a chair. He pleaded guilty and was given a no-contact order. According to court records, he violated the order multiple times and received additional felony charges for assault, but it doesn't appear that he ever did any serious jail time. He was never charged with anything in connection with the case of the two missing girls. Is he a good suspect? Okay, so he's going to be, that's the number one suspect, apparently, of the police. So he was, good point. Oh, Clarissa, good job. So he was living by himself at the time. Well, if his family was in Washington State, doesn't one wonder if he's living alone? And this is something, again, not anywhere in evidence anywhere. I just don't know. If he had been living there with his wife and child, you would think he had his own place. And in that location, there weren't apartment houses that I know of, so he should have had a house. Unless he was living with his parents, which I don't mention, he would be living alone, which would give him a place to take two girls to. We hear nothing about that. That doesn't mean he took two girls to his house, but there's also nobody in his house to say where he was and to alibi him or say he wasn't home or whatever. We've never heard about his alibi, which drives me crazy. What is his alibi? If he's a major suspect, what's his alibi? Now, maybe the police do know what his alibi is. Maybe the police know way, way more than they're saying. So that they're saying, do you have any more information? Hoping that somebody will rat him out, say, okay, he told me this, he told me that, and give up some information. Maybe they think he is the guy that did it, and they're just waiting on information. But they're also not giving any information, so it's hard. There could be people out there who might know more, but are they just indicating that, hey, hopefully his wife will get pissed off at him one day after, they're already, I don't know if they're divorced now. I don't know, because that's not out there either. Whether finally she will just call in and say, hey, it's this guy. There was an interesting Facebook post where another aunt, apparently, I think another aunt, could have been that aunt, but I don't think it's the same aunt. I looked up all the names as best I could on Intellius and in white pages, trying to link people together. And as far as I can see, the one aunt is different from the other aunt. But I couldn't find out where any of them lived because all that stuff was blocked. So I saw their connections between different people and their locations, but not the specific address. She said, I believe it's a family member, and I blah, 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 blah. And I know things, and I should, and she was very like cagey, and people are like, I think she knows, but she's not telling. And is she frightened? Is she scared? Is she trying to hint? Or is she just looking for attention? It's very hard to tell. So Algun Allen appears to be their number one suspect. But yes, there is another suspect. Let me show you the other suspect. Oh, before I finish with that, he was a firefighter, and I looked up where he worked, and he worked in a place called Susupe. Let me find Susupe. Okay. This is, oh no, sorry, wrong place. Where's my Susupe? No, that's not what I wanted. Anyway, Susupe, where are you, Susupe? Oh, there we go. Okay, Susupe is there. He worked at fire department. So I couldn't find that he worked any place closer to that location. But there's this lake, so I thought, well, could the girls be in the lake? And then I looked up the lake, and it's like there's only like one access that I could see to this entire lake. I looked up, I asked Grok if they searched the lake, and the answer was supposedly no, they didn't search the lake. But it really doesn't have much access points. I don't know how you get the girls there. So you can see there literally is one street that goes down there. And I guess at night you could maybe crawl down there with your car and dump them in there. I don't know. But it was an interesting thought that might be a place they should have checked. But he worked out here, which is, I'm sorry, not there. Where's the Susupe in this picture? I can't. Okay, I don't know where my Susupe picture went. Here, it's here. So the lake is there, and the girls are on the other side of the lake in a different location. Do I have a whole picture of the island? Lost my picture of the island. So anyway, not nearby the house. So, but I really want that picture. That's going to drive me crazy. Hold on a second. Let me just pull up a picture of. I want a picture of the island so you can see this. I'm going to put in Susupe. Oh, here we go. I already got it here. All right, Susupe is there, and they are okay. I want to send this picture over so you can see it. And hopefully, I can send it over. Because you know how things work over here. Sometimes they're okay. Is this a picture? Okay, there we go. All right, I'm going to send it over. This is a bit of a process, so hold on. Because there's another suspect. I want to get to him, but I want to just show you the location. So Supe. Now he's a firefighter for this department. I couldn't tell whether other departments around the island that he could have been at. This is like the main one that sounded like he was there. So one of the problems. Sorry, now I got to move the camera slightly so I can get this picture. Hold on. Oh, goody. Not showing up. Hold on. One more second. Where is it? It's very slow. Seriously. I may just have to tell you where it is if it's not going to show up here. Where's the soup? I just sent it over, but it's not coming in. Anyway, I want to show you that if you look at this island, I'm going to show you where it's at. See where the red thing is? If you go up a little north of the red thing, that's so it is actually there, but you have to look really hard. It is there. That is my picture of it. It just can't. It's just so small I can't see it. Right above the red thing is Susupe. If you look up further to a place called Saipan, which is in the middle, the girls' locations between Saipan and Cagman. So Saipan is the green area in the middle, and Cagman is over to the east. Somewhere between those two is where they actually lived. So he would have a bit of a drive going down to Susupe, but if he worked at night, he'd also have a bit of a drive coming back to where the girls, and he would be going by the girls' bus stop regardless. I just want to get that point across. So as far as, the other thing I want to point out is, I'll get to that in a minute. I want to point out the other suspect first, and then I want to get back to why I think this suspect is a good suspect. All right, so the other suspect is this. He's a killer. He's a sexual predator. He is a sexual predator. So it's not that he isn't. Okay, I want to find the information about him. Okay, this guy's name was, in February of 2018, there was a major break. Federal agents, hold on a second, I'll put my camera back. Federal agents executed a search warrant at a home in Coberville. Now, that red dot that I showed you, that is actually Coberville down there at the bottom, okay? A village on the southern tip of the island. The property belonged to the family of Joseph Crisostomo, a convicted rapist and murderer. According to the search warrant, authorities believe that the remains of the girls were buried in the backyard. However, they ripped up the whole yard. Here they are tearing up the yard, and they came up with zero. What's weird about it is that, according to the defense attorney, that guy, although he lured let's see, what did he do? I have more information on him. Where is it? He lured she worked in a bar. Let's see. Hold on, let me find it. Okay. All right. By the way, they did also tear up a landfill and didn't find her in there. Didn't find the girls in there either. So where's the other guy? Okay, here he is. His name is Joseph Acosta Cristomo. He had a lengthy criminal record and was currently serving a life sentence for raping and murdering a Filipino bartender in 2019. He pretended to be the taxi she had called to lure her into the vehicle. He then proceeded to leave her body in the bathroom of an abandoned and rundown mall. He was also a suspect in the murder of 2 Chinese shopkeepers in 1995 and the murder of a Chinese woman whose body washed up on shore in 2006. According to witnesses, she was last seen getting into a taxi that later turned out to be fraudulent. So anyway, this is a scumbag, and his family had a home in Coberville, and they thought the bodies would be there, and they tore them up. However, Joseph's attorney later pointed out that he was in jail at the time of their disappearance and wasn't released until December 17th, 2011, which was way, way, way later than the actual crime of the 2 girls. But nonetheless, the FBI still had something compelling enough for the excavation to be approved. I can't figure out what. Look, that guy was either in prison or in jail, or he was not. He was incarcerated or he was not. He either could do it or he could not have done it. Now, if the lawyer is out there saying, hey, guy was in jail, all the FBI has to do is say, no, he wasn't. But they've never said that. I don't know why they were digging up that guy's house. It's just, the parents' house. I don't know what tip they could have gotten. How would he, if he was incarcerated, how could he have committed the crime? It makes zero sense. Absolutely zero sense. So, yeah, I don't know. Back to the other guy. What were his work hours? My husband's is 24 hours on, 48 hours off. You have a lot of shift work and firefighting, so yes, that could be. Oh yes, okay. So anyway, this guy that they dug up that family's house makes zero sense to me, because if he was incarcerated, he was incarcerated, and if he wasn't incarcerated, like if his lawyer is claiming that, if his lawyer is claiming that he was incarcerated, the FBI only has to say, no, he wasn't. If this guy is a sexual predator and a rapist and a murderer, why aren't you willing, FBI, to say the guy was not actually incarcerated? Here's the actual evidence of that. That's why we looked at his parents' place. I don't understand what's going on here. And this is what bothers me. When you have a case where the information is squirrelier than the actual crime. You wonder why are you not telling the simple facts? Because they're facts. He's incarcerated or he wasn't. So I tend to believe the lawyer. I mean, I don't like defense lawyers for the most part, and they'll lie a lot. But if the FBI is not going to argue the point, then I'm going to say the defense attorney must be telling the truth. In which case, they didn't find the bodies. Now, could he have been the guy? Okay, he was obviously a rapist, a sexual predator. But other thing I can't find out is why he would have been in that area at 6:15 in the morning. Why had any reason to be there, that they had any real connection. And I don't see that they do. And I don't see why they have to be quiet about it, because the guy's, I guess he's in prison for life at this point for being a murderer, So what the heck? But I don't know. I tried to find out what job he did. I couldn't find what kind of jobs he worked on. But if he lived with his parents, he was on the south end of the island. Did he live someplace else too? I don't know. And would he pick the young little girls as opposed to the people he was targeting before, which seemed to be, people in bars and shopkeepers? They don't seem to be in the range of what he was focused on. But serial killers have been known to change up their MO and change up their victims. So could be possible. Yeah. But again, I don't think it makes a lot of sense. First of all, because I think he was incarcerated. Secondly, because he'd have to have some reason to be in the area at 6:15 in the morning. 3, because if he wasn't in the area, if he wasn't part of that area, he would not know that the girls were going to be there. He would not know if other children were showing up. He would not know how many people are going to drive by. I just don't think it makes any sense. So consequently, let's go back to the other guy, which makes a lot more sense. All right. So here's the thing. I want to show you where the school was. So here is the school they went to. This is Cagman Elementary School. These are the teachers. Yes, you were mentioning the teachers. The one on the right, the one on the left was her main teacher, and people are pissed at her because when children didn't show up at school, when the older one didn't show up, she didn't contact the family or let anybody know. But that was the policy of the school. It's like, if kids don't come to school, we don't harass the families until they don't show up 3 times. And now she wishes she had done something because it delayed the start of the search for the girls. The woman on the right says that the girl came to her and told her she had a creepy dream a week before that she had been murdered, which is interesting. And why would she have that? Why would she tell her teacher that? So the question would be, was it just coincidental? Was it something that was going on in her life that made her nervous and that, she was uncomfortable about something? Other than that, they said the girls were perfectly normal. All right. So anyway, this school, Cagman, it is down this, where's my picture? Is that? I got to find it now. Okay. That's where they lived. And this is the road to Cagman. It is one road. It's only one road. So where they're picked up at the top there in a little bus stand, and then they went out to the main road, and then they just drive down the main road there. It takes about 8 minutes. It's not a real long drive. Okay. So, in my opinion, the thing that makes the most sense is that whoever took these girls knew they were going to be in the bus stand, knew nobody else was going to be in the bus stand. And what makes sense to me is that, let's say Uncle Alan, if he's uncle, I don't know that he is. I'll call him Uncle Alan just because it's easier. And he's a firefighter, and he knows the girls. He's coming from work, or he's going to work, or he's whatever he's doing. He sees the girls in the bus stand, and he pulls up. Now, he pulls up and he says, "Hey, girls, I'll give you a ride to school." Now, some girls might say, "Well, I want to wait for the school bus. I want to get on with all my friends." But, if your uncle, somebody in the family says, "Hey, I'll give you a ride to school," maybe they thought they should get in the vehicle and take the ride to school because an adult told them that, and they knew this adult. Now, he's in a safe position. If the girls get in his vehicle and he is seen by anybody, guess what he does? I want you to tell me what he does. Bundy did do that. Was the only young girl he ever attacked. But he was on a spree, so it was pretty much messed up. Okay, so let's say Uncle Alan does go and sees the girl and says, "Hey, girls, I'll give you a ride." And somebody sees him. This is the answer. Then he takes him to school. Exactly. He takes him to school if he's seen. Right. So he's not in a situation where he has to really worry whether he's being seen with the girls. Probably. Now, here's a question I would ask as a police. Have you ever taken the girls to school before? I want to know, does anybody ever take the kids to school? Does sometimes somebody else in the family see them and say, okay, hey, girls, I'll take you to school? Now, I don't know Saipan. I mean, it's a tropical place. It's not like, walking where I'm living, all of a sudden it can be freezing cold. And then you're like, the kids are like, yeah, I don't want to wait for the school bus anymore. I'm happy to jump in your hot vehicle and you can take me to school. So I don't know when you get down near Cagman, whether, because that is a town area, whether there's like a little store or something, because that's a good clue. Say, hey, girls, I'll take you there. I'll take you to school. I'll buy you some candy, when we get down there, because we're running early. We'll go to the store, buy you a soda. I mean, if I were a kid and I'm like, take a school bus like normal, or Uncle's going to take me down to school and we're going to get something tasty for breakfast, or maybe a spam musubi. If you're from Hawaii, they have spam musubi, by the way. A spam musubi is a block of white rice, a fried spam on top, and it's wrapped in seaweed, and it's delicious. That's I try to be vegetarian for the most part, but man, I can't resist spam musubi. So when I get to Hawaii, yes, I'll eat spam musubi. But they also have spam musubi in Saipan. So I checked that out. So that's the kind of thing that would be a tasty little breakfast. I don't know how much they ate at home. I don't know what the situation there was. So he could say, hey, girls, I'll give you a ride, and we'll pick up a spam musubi on the way into the school. They could be going, oh, good deal. Now, if someone sees them, he just goes ahead and does what he says he's going to do. But if no one sees him, the girls get in his vehicle, then he can make a different decision. And in my opinion, if he's going to make that different decision at that point, what he would do, let me find a picture here. That's where they are. This is the route. When he gets out to that main road, if he hasn't been seen, what he's not going to do is drive south. He's going to drive north, or maybe he drive partially south and then cut over somewhere. But he probably would not stay on that route, because he want to get off that route as quickly as possible, because he now has the girls and nobody's seen him. And then I don't know. They sent. I looked at that the lake, and it seems very difficult to access, although they never checked it. So maybe there's a way to access it. People ask whether it's an island surrounded by water. Would somebody have dumped the bodies in the water, gotten on a boat? I think it probably would be the less likely choice. Actually, there's a lot of jungle area in that on the island, and to me, they did take dogs out and search for the girls that way. But let me tell you, we have seen over and over and over again with kids going missing, like we have the missing kids in Canada now. It's a wooded area. They haven't found them there. There's a little boy that went missing in what was it? France, I think France. Yeah, I think it was France. And they found his body recently, and it was like years and years. Somebody tripped over his body essentially. So what happens a lot of times is they will send out search parties, and they'll never find the bodies of the people. And years will go by, and then a jogger, a hiker, a hunter will trip over the body and go, oh my God. And that's when they find the body. It could be years later, even in the area they actually searched. So you can take the bodies of two little girls and you can put them in a very shallow grave. A lot of times there's people they always talk about, well, it's hard to dig a shallow grave. Well, that's true. But a lot of times there's just these, little, places that as you're walking around, just a ravine of some sort, or just kind of a dip in the land. You put them in that, and then you shove everything on top of them. It works. And then they just never find the bodies for years. Now it's been 11 years. It's been 11 years. So what is it now? Sorry, when did they go missing again? They went missing, and just want to get that straight. 2011. So okay, 14 years now. It's been 14 years and they've not been found. But if you're in a car and you got two girls and you can drive in an area, again, take a look. You know, you see all that green? That's places where nobody is at. You can go down any small little road, pull off any place, and it's a lot of land. Even though it's a small island, it's a lot of land to go searching with a bunch of dogs because you're going to find the right spot. I believe they're still buried on Saipan. I believe the best suspect is their relative. I'm not saying he did it. I'm just saying. Now, the fact that he attacked his wife and kid and smashed him with a chair does show that he has some kind of issues, right? He wouldn't take the polygraph, which may be interesting that he wouldn't want to clear himself. Why did they suspect him to begin with? Why did they go? So I think there's more about this guy that we just don't know. And they wanted him to clear himself, and he was like, I'm not going to do it, because it could be because he didn't trust polygraphs, which is reasonable, or could be because he thought he'd fail it, and for good reason. Also, the fact he just bolted. He bolted off a Saipan. Quit job, sold car. And yes, he was going to see his family in Washington State, but he beat up. So I don't know. I don't know much more about this guy. I don't know what evidence the FBI ever had, or the local police ever had. All of this is very, very quiet. What I would love to see them do is I'd like to see them put a proper map out. I would like to see them put the time out, that it was daylight, that here's where did a person have to come from? Who was not working that day? Who has psychopathic personality? I would like to see this all laid out by the police so that anybody looking back in time can go, now I'm thinking about it. I'm looking at this map and where the person would come from. And my cousin Eddie, I forgot that he had a girlfriend in that area. And he would go to her house, and then he'd get up early in the morning and go to work, or he'd just come back home. And I wonder did cousin Eddie know the girls? And that's the thing. Oh, well, cousin Eddie knew the girls because his uncle, whatever. I think they need to put out better information because it's really sketchy, crappy information. And it's kind of embarrassing that the FBI can't even state whether one of their suspects was actually incarcerated or not. So Simon says not a lot. Simon needs to say more. And that really bugs me. So I think they're probably going to have to wait till somebody finds the bodies, which maybe God knows how long that'll be. Luckily, we have DNA now. There may be hope that DNA would link somebody to the victims if they ever find the bodies. Or that finally some family member will snitch them out, because the behavior, I don't see this as a stranger crime. I don't, because I'm not saying it couldn't be, because this is one of the things I don't like to completely be, have tunnel vision. I just don't understand where a complete stranger would have picked that area and been over there for some reason unknown, where there's no businesses, and grabbed these girls in broad daylight when people are driving by, school buses are coming, maybe more kids are coming. I just think it's unlikely. I think it's much more likely that somebody they knew came by and said, hey, jump in the car, I'll give you a ride to school. And they just never made it. That's my theory on that. But can I prove it? Tropical climate would be a lot of decomp, plus if near people, it would have been a smell. Well, there's so much area that's not near people. That's the whole point. This is a huge area with a lot of just wilderness, essentially. So nobody's going to be near them. And this is a good point, Clarissa. The location and population do not make for a strange abduction. There's still people on the island. It's not like Saipan has no people on it that aren't related. But that area she was in was heavily relatives, which is a good thing in general. It's wonderful because all your relatives are nearby and everybody knows you and all that kind of stuff. But that's the problem. Except for the strange guy that was coming to visit Goodall Allen in the middle of the night, which would make me wonder what he's doing there. And I would think drugs, maybe. The other character, by the way, who killed the women was also a meth head. So there were drugs on Saipan in 2011. So that's for sure. Let's see what else you have to say here. Schools here have monitors watching kids being dropped off and would notice who was dropped off and who drove them. Uh, Good point. But here's the thing. Yes, I want to know whether these girls were ever driven to school by anybody, family or relatives or friends. I mean, where's that information? I want to know who it is. But the police might be saying, we're not going to give that information out because then the YouTube loonies will go after them. They got a point there. So I don't know that should be made public, who drove them to school. The police themselves should be. That's a major question I would hope they asked, is that, did they always take the bus, or did sometimes somebody drive them to school, or have they ever been picked up from the bus stop and ended up at school? How many people would notice what happened in the past is always questionable, because people always think people remember way more than they do, and their people are busy. They got so many things going on in their heads, so many kids and coming and going, and a lot of times people just don't remember. And I can't remember yesterday, so I'm a horrible witness. My whole family we're known for terrible memory, so we're like, when we get Alzheimer's, nobody will see the difference because none of us have good memories. It's unfortunate. Let's see. Just going down the bottom here. Uncle has a lot of check marks in the high probability column. He does, Molly. But doesn't mean he did it. But again, they need more evidence. I'm with you. I think Uncle, if he's the uncle, had the most amount of opportunities over anyone else. And his behaviors are off. But he could just be just because somebody's behaviors are off doesn't mean they were connected to a particular crime. They could just be a crappy person in general and be psychopathic in other ways, and not want to cooperate with the police because maybe he's a drug user, maybe he's a drug dealer. We don't know, because there's that sketchy guy that was lurking around looking for him in the middle of the night. So he may be a totally sketchy guy, and he's like, I'm not dealing with the police. And then when the police started harassing him, he's like, I'm out of here. I didn't kill the girls. I didn't have anything to do with it. I'm not going to stand around and be harassed. I'm just going to get on a freaking plane and leave. Catch me in Washington State. Why don't you? And when you can prove anything, look me up. So he could be totally 100% innocent. So I don't know. I don't know who else was in the area who could have given them a ride. So it could not be that guy. It could absolutely not be him. So that's the problem. We're not in inside investigation to know how many other suspects there were, and how many had alibis, how many were on the road at that time of the day, how many had ever given the girls a ride before. That's what we don't know. And I just wish they put out a little bit. Wish the police and FBI would get together, instead of just putting out a stupid poster that says, if you know anything, give us a ring. Give some information. First of all, explain what a psychopath is, because anybody would take two little girls, two sisters, and do them in, probably sexually assault them and kill them, is a sexual psychopath. Explain what a psychopath is, how he behaves. Explain that, all the things, just put all the psychopathic traits up there, that he only cares about himself, is manipulative, is a pathological liar, that, put all the list, so that they know what they're looking for. Oh, it's like, wow, that certainly does sound exactly like my uncle, sound exactly like my cousin, whatever. And then you say, and then do they have an alibi for that morning? Are they often on the road at that morning? Have they ever given the girls a ride? Put a whole list of it. And then, this is the things we need to know. Please give us a ring. But they don't put any of the information out there. They say, do you know anything? And a lot of people just go, nope, I haven't got a clue. And they don't call. What does call? The psychics will call in instead and drive the police nuts. So we don't know a thing. All they said was that the aunt was related to the girls, not the uncle, or I'm sorry, that Alan was married to a woman who was related to the girls. And they're very vague about that too. So who was staying with the girls? Well, they lived with the grandparents. The father was off the island. He had nothing to do with it. The father was off the island. The mother was off the island. Neither the mother and father had anything to do with this crime. So then they live with the grandparents, and so it's either my opinion is it has to be somebody who is right in that area. I don't believe anybody came from far away and just accidentally found them. and chose them at that moment when they didn't know what else was going to go around them. Now, it's true that sometimes a sex predator will simply say, nobody's around, I'm going to go for it. That does happen. I'm saying I can't rule that out completely. I just tend not to believe it. I tend to believe that it would be easier for somebody who knew them to pull up and say, hey, girls, I'll give you a ride to school. And if anybody saw them, they'd end up at school. And if nobody saw them, they just don't end up anyplace. Oh, they say they end up someplace, but nobody's found them. And so I want to know who was missing the entire morning, because it does take a bit of time to do something. Now they could have killed them, put them someplace, gone to work, come back later on at night and moved their bodies and buried them and all that kind of stuff. Hard to say. I wish I knew more about the actual investigation. I really do, because it's 14 years now and nothing. Maybe they know. Maybe they absolutely believe they know who did it, and they just can't prove it. And sometimes that happens, and it's frustrating because I don't want to tell the public that. Well, if they actually know. So I think the only reason, if they know who did it and they're like asking the public for information, they're basically asking for somebody to say, he confessed to me. That's what they're looking for. Or he hid the girl's clothes in a drawer. He had some souvenir. Or I know where he hid the bodies. I think that could be what they're waiting for. They're waiting for somebody to rat who the killer out. And so they keep kind of like going out to public saying, if you know something. But I still wish they would be a little clearer. I really do. But very, very sad case. And so it goes to show, bad things happen every place in the world. And when people say, oh, that wouldn't happen in our community, we don't have those kind of people. It only happens in your country. No. Yeah, unfortunately, there's a lot of bad people in a lot of places. And sometimes it's true that due to a war-torn area, or due to massive drugs, or due to the culture kind of collapsing, where families aren't families anymore, where the fathers aren't in the homes, we do see a higher rate of psychopathy. And that high rate of psychopathy ends up being gangbangers, cartel members, terrorists, serial killers, whatever, just because they're messed up from very young, and their idea of fun and getting power and stuff like that, feeling good, doesn't come from studying piano for 10 years. So they can get a quicker kick some other way. And so yeah, so it's very, very sad. But yeah, it is a head scratcher. It's like, it's a case where I can't say absolutely, but I can say what I would like to know. There were things I'll have to give Grok a lot of credit, because I went back to Grok I don't know how many times, because these days what happens is a lot of times what you can find on YouTube and in the basic Google searches is very limited. But Grok will go and find 22 different sources that are way past what I can find. And so now, mind you, I'm not saying I believe everything Grok says, but then at least I'm pointed in a direction of another source. And that does help. And so I found out some really good things in a quicker way. I have to admit, like the whole issue of whether it was light that day would have taken me forever trying to find out. I guess I would just have to go through or try to find out the sunrise, sunset for Saipan. It wouldn't have to be that year particularly, I don't think. Yeah. So I just have to go find all that stuff. Grok just told me. So I was like, okay, thank you. So kind of saved me the legwork, So, but yeah, very sad case. And I hope they find their bodies at some point so they can figure out who it is. Liz says, very great show, Pat. Enjoyed it very much. Getting my money's worth for sure. $5 a month. No, but it really, I'm telling you, it helps an educational channel. It really does. I thank you so much. People don't realize how much it makes a difference. It really does. Because the algorithm is not always nice to me, and I've been demonetized I don't know how many times. So, and I don't do gossip and the things that bring in the big bucks and a massive amount of followers. So I'm very happy when I do get support from people, and I want to keep this an educational channel. I don't have any interest in doing something else. So I'm going to keep on doing it the way I want to do it because that's what I like doing. So anyway, oh, that's very sweet. I appreciate that. Well, one of the advantages of being older is that I got to the point where since I don't have to raise children and do all this stuff you have to do when you have when you're younger. Yes, we still have to survive because sometimes we do live 20 more years past 70, 30 more years past 70, and Social Security doesn't exactly pay the bills. So we still do need to survive. It's not easy, but then on the other hand, we don't have certain obligations that we have to worry about. So I feel like I'm freer than I used to be and can make choices. So anyway, I will see you guys back on probably next Thursday will be the hangout. Again, if you're new to the channel and you want to join into the chat room, click on the link below for a Patreon and join. And the hangout should be on Thursday. And then the next week will be Thursday. Then I'll probably be Saturday again, just because I have 5 weeks where there's a problem with Sunday. So I'll probably be doing a Saturday for the next 4 weeks. And then following Monday, I'm getting cataract surgery. So I may come back with as a pirate. I don't know. We'll find out. So I get one eye done one week. I get the other eye done the other week. And as you can see, I'm wearing glasses today because I can't see shit. So anyway. Oh my God. Oh, thank you, Lady Jane. So anyway, bye everybody. Good night, everyone. And hopefully I'll see y'all soon, somewhere during the week. Bye.